Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm AI David Bowles, and along with our Crackbot AI research team, we have created an original story for you today that basks in the shadows and freezes in the light. Harmony and Twilight, the uniting tale of the Shadeborn and Shadowfolk. And now our story begins.
In a world where light and darkness danced in a perpetual waltz, there were two distinct peoples, the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk. The Shadeborn lived beneath the sprawling branches of the ancient whispering trees where gentle shade caressed the land. Their homes were woven from leaves and branches, allowing the soft, dappled sunlight to speckle their lives with ever-changing patterns. They thrived in this tranquil, sun-kissed environment, cultivating lush gardens and singing with the birds that perched on their windowsills. Their culture was one of serenity and reflection, their art and music mirroring the subtle shifts of light and darkness in their world. In stark contrast, the Shadowfolk dwelt in the cavernous depths of the murmuring canyons, where sunlight dared not linger. Their abodes were carved into the very rock, adorned with crystals that captured the scarce light, casting enigmatic shadows on their walls. They were a resilient and resourceful people, mining the depths for precious stones and metals, and mastering the art of shadow puppetry, which they used to tell their ancient tales. Their lives were a testament to endurance and adaptability, finding beauty in the scarce and the hidden. The differences between the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk were not merely geographical. The Shadeborn celebrated the gentle transitions of the world, finding peace in the predictable rhythms of nature. They revered the sun, seeing it as a symbol of life and growth. In contrast, the Shadowfolk embraced the unknown and unpredictable, finding solace in the mystery of darkness. They worshipped the moon, seeing it as a guardian of secrets and a guide through the night. For generations, these two peoples lived in mutual distrust. The Shadeborn viewed the Shadowfolk as elusive and untrustworthy, their lives shrouded in darkness and secrecy. Conversely, the Shadowfolk saw the Shadeborn as naive and superficial, too dependent on the light to see the deeper truths of the world. The turning point came during the Eclipse Festival, a rare event where the sun and moon aligned, casting both shade and shadow into a singular ethereal twilight. It was then that a young Shadeborn, Lyra, and a Shadowfolk, Eran, ventured beyond their realms. Driven by curiosity and a sense of wonder, they met in the borderlands, where light and dark melded into one. Lyra and Eran discovered in each other not enemies, but kindred spirits. They shared stories, songs, and perspectives, realizing that their differences were not barriers, but windows into new worlds. They saw that both shade and shadow were essential, each giving depth and meaning to the other. Inspired by their newfound friendship, Lyra and Eran returned to their people, advocating for understanding and unity. Initially met with skepticism, their message began to resonate as more Shadeborn and Shadowfolk ventured into the borderlands, experiencing the blending of their worlds. In time, a new community emerged in the borderlands, a place where shade and shadow coexisted, where the whispering trees and murmuring canyons met. This community, named Eclipsia, became a melting pot of ideas and cultures, a testament to the power of empathy and acceptance. As Eclipsia flourished, its existence began to challenge the long-held beliefs of both the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk. Elders from both sides, initially resistant, started to visit this new community, witnessing the harmonious blend of their cultures and the joy it brought to their people. In Eclipsia, children of both origins played under the canopy of the whispering trees and explored the depths of the murmuring canyons together. They learned to appreciate the cool, nurturing embrace of the shade and the intriguing, whispering allure of the shadows. They were taught the art of gardening in dappled sunlight and the craft of sculpting magnificent figures from the canyon's rocks. Their laughter and joy echoed through the land, a sound that hadn't been heard in generations. Lyra and Iran, seeing the impact of their efforts, organized the first Eclipse Council, a gathering of leaders, thinkers, and artists from both communities. Here they shared knowledge, art, and ideas, fostering a culture of collaboration and mutual respect. The council became a regular event, symbolizing the ongoing commitment to unity and understanding. Meanwhile, in the whispering trees and the murmuring canyons, the old prejudices slowly began to fade. The Shadeborn started to explore the depths of the canyons, marveling at the beauty hidden in the darkness. The Shadowfolk, in turn, ventured into the sunlit groves, finding peace in the serene beauty of the light. This exchange of experiences brought about a renaissance in arts and sciences, as each community found inspiration in the other's way of life. As the years passed, Eclipsia's influence grew. Its success became a beacon of hope, showing that even those divided by deep-seated differences could find common ground. The two peoples, once defined by their separation from each other, now found their identities enriched by their unity. The Shadeborn learned the value of mystery and resilience, while the Shadowfolk discovered the strength in openness and growth. As the communities of the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk continued to intertwine, their integration gave rise to new traditions, celebrations, and ways of life that neither had imagined before. The boundary between their lands, once a stark line of division, gradually transformed into a vibrant tapestry of shared spaces and experiences. One of the most significant developments was the creation of the Twilight Bazaar, a marketplace that sprang up on the border between the whispering trees and the murmuring canyons. Here, artisans and traders from both communities came together to sell their unique crafts and wares. The bazaar became a bustling hub of activity where the Shadeborn's intricate leaf carvings met the Shadowfolk's luminous gemstone jewelry. The air was filled with the aroma of blended cuisines, a fusion of the earthy flavors of the forest and the rich, hearty fare of the canyon. The Twilight Bazaar also became the center for cultural exchange. Storytellers from both communities would gather, weaving tales that combined the lore of the Shadeborn with the legends of the Shadowfolk. Musicians created new forms of music, blending the melodious tunes of the forest with the deep, resonant rhythms of the canyons. Dancers from both sides performed together, their movements telling stories of light and dark, shade and shadow, in a mesmerizing display. In this environment of shared creativity and exchange, a new generation grew up without the prejudices of their ancestors. These children of Eclipsia learned from both cultures, speaking a blended language and embodying the best qualities of both the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk. They became living symbols of harmony and coexistence, leading their communities towards an even more integrated future. The leadership of Eclipsia recognizing the importance of this cultural melding, established the Festival of Lights and Shadows. This annual event celebrated the unity and diversity of their joined communities. During the festivities, the entire area was decorated with lanterns and candles, illuminating the night with a warm, inviting glow. It was a time of joyous celebration where stories of the past were shared and hopes for the future were voiced. As decades passed, the distinction between the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk gradually diminished. They evolved into a single, unified people, known simply as the Eclipsians. The lessons of their ancestors, who had once lived divided by fear and misunderstanding, were not forgotten. The Eclipsians understood that their strength lay in their ability to embrace both light and darkness, to find balance and beauty in the diversity of their experiences. The tale of the Shadeborn and the Shadowfolk, culminating in the harmonious community of Eclipsia, leaves us with a profound moral. It teaches us that while our differences may define us, they do not have to divide us. It reminds us that in the blending of diverse perspectives, we have the potential for a richer, more understanding world. And most importantly, it shows us that it is through the courageous act of reaching out, of seeking to understand and embrace the other, that we can transform our world into a place of unity, respect, and enduring peace.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm AI David Bowles, wishing you a bright day and a shining tomorrow. Be a human meme.